tell us a little bit about AFGE. First of all, how many members?
AFGE has right at 284,639 members as of December 31st.
Yeah, active members, right?
Active members, yes, sir.
In all branches, federal government?
All branches, from Social Security, Department of Veterans Affairs, Homeland Security, Department of Defense, TSA, you name it, we represent them.
I do think that government employees get a bad rap. Everybody, bitches about the bureaucrats or complains about the bureaucrats. Just a half an hour ago, we were talking to he may or may not be a member, I don't know, from the Federal Trade Commission, Assistant Director of the Federal Trade Commission, who was talking about all the work that they're doing to uncover fraud in advertising for food products and for weight loss products and everything. And people forget these are the guys who are on the job day in and day out doing the people's work, right?
Very much so, Bill. At this very moment, there's a nursing assistant at the bedside of some World War II veteran that, served this country and fought the Nazis and fought the people that would have made the world a different place. As that person's taking their last breath, that nursing assistant is there with them and their family. There's someone on the border today with it cold, hot, wherever they're at, protecting the border of this country. There's the transportation security officers at the airport today screening passengers. And while sometimes people complain about that, since we have federalized the transportation security officers, there has not been a successful hijacking in this country, and the American public are flying safe.
Yeah, no, good point. What part of the federal government was your service?
I came out of the Department of Veterans Affairs. I'm a registered nurse by profession.
I got it, yeah. I have a son who's a nurse practitioner.
All right.
It's a great profession. And more men getting into that.
Clearly, when I first went into it many years ago, there was less than 1% of all nurses were men. Now we're moving probably between 8 and 10% of the nurses of this country are men, and the number continues to grow.
Is there any way that some people have the impression, right, that these federal employees are living high on the hog? What's the reality? Is it? Do you know the average salary or average pension benefits?
Most federal employees' take-home pay is right at $500 a week. That is not a great deal of money, and particularly if you live in the Washington, D.C. area, that is no money at all. No matter where you live, that is not a great deal of money.
Right.
Federal employees are not.
So what? I'm just doing some quick math. That's about $30,000 a year.
Between $30,000, maybe a little more than that. But and also you have to remember, as of January 1 this year, all brand new federal employees are paying additional money into their retirement plan. 4.4% of their salary right off the top is now going in for retirement, and it's not to fund their retirement. It was to fund other government programs. It's the only group of employees in this country that continue to have their taxes increased.
Right. So the money. Wait a minute. More money for the retirement, fine, but it's not going into the retirement plan?
It's not going to their retirement at all, Bill. No. It increased again this January with what Congress did with the Budget Control Act for the 2-year process was increase the retirement contribution of all new federal employees as of January 1, 2014. They did the same thing January 1, 2013. There's now a 3-tiered retirement process in the federal government. The end result, everyone would draw the same amount in their retirement. It's just all new hires are paying much, much more into a fully funded system, and the money is taken to fund the government in other areas.
So if I'm looking for a career, young people, we're looking for a career in whatever field of endeavor that I'm interested in. If it's $35,000 a year, why do I want to work for the federal government?
Most
when I could make so much more, maybe in the private sector.
Most agencies are beginning to struggle with recruitment and retention of employees, simply because there's been a 3-year pay freeze, and now federal employees are getting a grand total of a 1% pay increase as of the first of this year. And at this point, the blue-collar workers, the wage-grade employees that's still tied up in Congress, they haven't even gotten the 1% raise thus far this year. We do believe that Congress and the administration will work and correct the problem, but that 1% is probably going to be delayed on them. So it's a difficult situation, but I think people that work for the federal government are very dedicated people. They wanted to be civil servants. I wanted to work at the VA. I wanted to care for veterans. That's what I wanted to do. The men and women that had served this country, that made this the best place in the world for us to live, that give me the right to be on the radio with you and we can have freedom of speech and that we can talk. I wanted to take care of those men and women.
And so it is really a form of public service.
Yes, sir. It clearly is. If you want to get rich, you're not going to go to work for the federal government. There's a sense of well-being. And some people talk about federal employees having a retirement plan. Federal employees have taken less pay all through the years to have a retirement plan, things of that nature. But
even their retirement plan is not...
It's very minimal. It is very, very minimal. Most federal employees, their retirement is about $1,000 a month. That is not a great deal of retirement money.
Even that and Social Security are not not paying for.
You're still going to be in the food stamp line that does not exist.
Yeah, no, exactly. So how has this sequester impacted federal employees?
It's impacted on, number one, federal employees. Many of them had 6 or more days of furlough last year. We had the government.
Which meant they didn't get paid for
those
days.
They did not get paid, followed by a government, I prefer to call it a lockout. The federal government locked us out of our jobs.
The government shut down?
Yes, sir. Yeah. We wanted to go to work. Agencies have less money, so as employees quit, leave, whatever, the federal government, they're not replacing them. There's still the same amount of work to be produced, less people to produce the work. There's not the amount of money for training, resources, all those things that make for a successful organization. I frequently hear, let's make the federal government more like the private sector. Private sector trains its employees. They invest in technology. They invest in having proper supplies and safety, all those type things. The government has less and less resources, so therefore there's less and less people to accomplish more and more work.
Are federal employees allowed, I don't know the answer, are federal employees allowed to go on strike?
No, sir, they are not. They are not. The laws.
So you've got all the benefits of being a union, except you can't flex your muscle. I guess, right?
Federal employees cannot strike. We cannot bargain wages and benefits as part of the collective bargaining process. We have to bargain that with Congress. They pass the laws that govern salary, benefits, things of that nature. We bargain about working conditions, conditions of employment, personnel policies and practices.
So your boss, right, is the Congress, or is it the President of the United States?
We say it's the President of the United States is the ultimate boss, because the President is obviously over all the federal agencies, appoints the secretaries and various administrators and all.
But when it comes to negotiating your contracts or negotiating your salaries, it's the Congress, right?
We have to bargain with Congress, lobby the Congress very, very hard.
So it's not automatic, in other words.
I think that's the reason we had a 3-year pay freeze, and now we have got a whopping 1% pay increase after 3 years. And besides that, the retirement contribution has moved from 0.8% to 4.4%. So all new federal employees are suffering a pay decrease, not an increase.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I hear all the complaints about federal employees. I don't know where we would be without them, though. At the same time, I mean, these are services that we do depend on, all of us. Again, whether it's a passport agency, or I mentioned the Federal Trade Commission, or you mentioned TSA. the Capitol Police around here. I mean, you're on and on and on, right?
Continuously. We don't think much about the fact that at this very moment there are thousands of correctional officers in the Bureau of Prisons that's protecting us from some of the worst criminals in the world. And many of those people are currently locked into a cell block with 150 inmates with one correctional officer. I visited a prison recently in Puerto Rico and one in Seattle, Washington. It was the scariest event of my life.
Really?
To be in there, that took me in, was one correctional officer with 150 inmates in the prison. This officer, they can try to push a button, call on the radio if they get into trouble, but even to get in, it's very difficult. And over the last 2 years, we've had 2 correctional officers murdered on the job simply because there was insufficient staffing in the Bureau of Prisons.